Good evening, welcome to the show. We're in far better shape than it might sound, and the weather being as it is outside, I do recommend that you sit tight at least for an hour. Most of what we talk about will be before the England match anyway, and be entertained on cricket and football this evening. And as luck would have it, two major stories have kind of fallen into our lap in this studio tonight, because one of my guests is a personal friend of Joe Root, the England cricket captain, and he's sort of a mentor to him as well, a coaching aide. And of course today, Joe Root, the England captain, has announced that from now on he intends to bat at number 4 in the order, which has always been a debating point where he should bat. I'm also delighted to welcome Mike McCarthy of BBC Radio Sheffield, who's landed the hottest potato of the evening, which has been the announcement within the last couple of hours of the EFL bringing charges against Sheffield Wednesday for alleged financial misconduct. Whatever Mike's got to make of that and what I've got to make of that, Josh Varley, we're going to make him keep quiet on that because his allegiances lie elsewhere in the city. But welcome, Josh.
Thank you.
And
thank you very much.
It's great to see you. I mean, you and I know each other from the summer months when
Yes, of course. Yep.
I love popping down to watch Sheffield Collegiate at Aberdale Park, and you happen to be the captain of Sheffield Collegiate.
Yeah.
But you've been in the news rather a lot lately. I mean, this is the lowest profile of your media engagements, isn't it, really?
It has, yeah. It's been a busy couple of weeks, actually. It was sort of, it came after the 100 draw, the draft. Joe did a little interview, I say little, and then I was on a flight at the time and landed the next day, and my phone was going berserk. So yeah, it was a pretty busy couple of days after. You've
been on Sky and goodness knows what, BBC, and you're on here this evening as a personality now in your own right, because of the work that you've been doing with Joe. A little bit later, we're going to see little snatches of a coaching video or coaching sessions that you do. So at whose instigation was this? I mean, obviously he had a difficult summer. I'll give you the figures lately. Average 32. I'd be delighted to average 32 in a Test series, Mike, wouldn't you?
I'll take that
and call that a failure.
Twice on a Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. Delighted. But it's all relative. And, you know, he's obviously as concerned about his batting as anybody else, or more so.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the situations you want to do as well as you can, don't you? I mean, there's always lots of talk about, you know, your record as captain and not as captain, and people, you know, who said that Joe's problem is he doesn't score enough hundreds, but he scores too many 50s, and that's not really it's not a bad problem to have as such, is it?
Not, is it?
But yeah, it was something where Joe he asked me in the winter just to do a bit of work again, and it's not something we've just done this winter or this off season. We do it all the time as much as we can. Whenever he's got a bit of time off, it's something we do. It's just this one's been a bit more recognised than others, and it's just sort of fallen right, really. He's looked at a few things in his own technique, along with doing some video stuff and a lot of talking as such. Nothing major. No one else around really, and just keeping it really simple, back to his roots, to use the phrase.
Yeah. We'll see whether you retain your job as
we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
During the 2 Test series in New Zealand, and then the 4 tests in South Africa to follow.
Yeah, of
we'll
course.
See if you've kept your job
absolutely.
after that.
Yeah,
but you mentioned those figures. I say it's all relative. He's scored. I mean, I still think of him as a young cricketer. Having seen him playing for Sheffield Collegiate at something like 13 and 14, he's actually 28 years old now. So he's twice the age when I first saw him play. over 7,000 runs in tests, average 48, 1600s, 45, 50s. But you mentioned that figure, his average has dropped as captain from 52.8 to 38.4. Which again, you know, 38.4, you're contributing all the time. So we'll come back to more specific nuts and bolts about Joe Root's batting technique after we bring in Mike. Sorry, to delay your entrance. It's good to see you. The most recent addition to the BBC Radio Sheffield football reporting team, having arrived here from Leicester. Goodness knows why you moved from Leicester, because they just won the league title after you moved.
Well, I had a wonderful time there. I spent about 6 years at Leicester, working my way up through radio, so reading the travel, doing all the bits and pieces behind the scenes you need to do to sort of learn the job. Spent a couple of years covering the Leicester Tigers, going around Europe with them, which was brilliant, and then a couple of years covering Leicester City and that magnificent title win, which was just extraordinary. But the opportunity to come to Sheffield and cover the sporting patch that is here it was just too good to let up, really. It was,
and did you half think, well, that will never happen again, Leicester will never win the title?
Yeah, well, I'm starting to think it might not. It might not been the last time they've done it. I mean, it's been an extraordinary start for Leicester this year under Brendan Rodgers. I mean, Liverpool are just too strong, probably, but this Leicester City team would probably beat the Leicester team that won the title. The way that they're playing at the moment, they've been absolutely brilliant, and they're doing great things. And well, it's just great to see the Premier League now here in South Yorkshire as well, with Sheffield United doing so well.
It is. It's good to see so-called unfancied teams up near the top, not least Sheffield United themselves, who are 5th in the Premier League, much to the delight of the man here as well. Not a total surprise to those of us who've watched them regularly, although I don't think any of us would have said they're going to be 5th at this stage of the season. I might have put it at 10th or 11th, something like that. But it has been a terrific start, hasn't it?
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I've been to West Ham and I went to the Watford game, both games where Sheffield United in patches did extremely well. They, at the start of the season, all sorts of questions being, laid from the national media, even to the extent that some were saying, are Sheffield United really going to take the Premier League seriously? Well, I think we're now seeing exactly how seriously they're taking it. They've been nothing short of absolutely brilliant. And what Crystal Wilder and Alan Hill are doing has been magnificent so far. They won't want to let it up. It's going to be a great start, but keeping it going now and finishing in the top half would just be extraordinary, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there have been a lot of ignorant and ill-informed comments, really, and it's such a delight to see Sheffield United actually doing their talking on the football pitch and putting the lie to those. I was talking to Sean Dyche, I don't want to sort of name drop, but about this after Burnley were soundly thrashed at Bramall Lane recently, and that's the subject of my column. By the way, the Sheffield Telegraph is out. Do something revolutionary and buy a newspaper, because at the moment that's the only way you'll see my column this week, quoting Sean Dyche in some depth about sort of fulsome praise for Sheffield United, but saying, look, what we found, it's the challenge is a season, a full season. It's such a long time. Chris Wilder won't need telling any of that.
No, and I remember the Leicester experience when they went up as Championship champions and first few games did really well. We remember that 5-3 win over Manchester United, and people were starting to think, well, Leicester City, could they finish in the top half? Could they finish in a European position playing like they are? They didn't win again until after Christmas. No. And there was, this real drop-off. So I'm sure, Chris Wilder and Alan Hill will be absolutely on it, in terms of keeping the intensity and the levels that they're performing at right now. And, he said already, if teams start getting results against Sheffield United, it would be because Sheffield United's level has dropped off, not because other teams have worked them out or, any kind of analysis that's been done. It's because of what Sheffield United are doing. So he's put it all on the team to carry on performing the way they are. And it's difficult to see why they wouldn't. Yeah,
well, complacency is never, ever going to be a problem with that manager, that coach and those players. It's almost been the reverse of getting the players to believe that they're as good as they are.
Yeah.
And they're starting to strut a little bit, which is a good thing. The way that they played at Tottenham in particular, you must be enjoying it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I think it's great that they're still playing the same way with little tweaks of sort of tempo and fitness. You can sort of see that's come a lot, but they're playing the same way. You've people are talking about these overlapping centre backs, and we've seen it for a couple of years now. The wing backs, the full backs getting up and down and doing the most miles. I mean, they've been playing out the skin this year. That's certainly been the backbone of our performances. The guys, I think George Bullock's been in the team of the week about 3 times this year, so he's certainly playing. They're all playing very well for each other as well.
Yeah, indeed. We're going to come back to the subject of Joe Root, and of course he'll be just as delighted if he's watching us in New Zealand. I'm sure he'll concur with a lot of the comments that you've made there. After we've dealt as far as we can with the Sheffield Wednesday story that was announced announced earlier this afternoon, you may have heard it, that the EFL have brought charges. I don't think they were specific on how many charges they brought.
No, it's just plural.
Various charges over alleged breach of financial rules in relation to the club's 2017-18 accounts. Those charges of misconduct relate to specifically how and when the stadium manoeuvre was made, the stadium sale manoeuvre, and the inclusion of that money, it would seem retrospectively, in the 2017-18 accounts. The EFL, and this is quite ominous, says, quotes, it has the ability to invoke a full range of sanctions should the breach be confirmed. They've got the breach there, singular, which, you know, obviously those penalties do include points penalties. That's got to be the fear.
Well, yeah, and you know, if you live in that alternative universe where Sheffield Wednesday hadn't sold Hillsborough, the loss that they would have totaled up, when you look at the Birmingham punishment, it seems like maybe a 12-point deduction would be something in the realm of what the EFL would think for the level of losses that we would have seen from Sheffield Wednesday had Hillsborough not been sold. But it was. The question there being, when was it sold, and then can it be included in the 2017-18 accounts? So we know that Hillsborough was sold in the summer of 2019. We know that because that's what it says at the land registry. There are ways in accounts that you can include events that you know are going to happen later on in accounts for a financial year that has just gone. So if Sheffield Wednesday can prove that they always knew this sale was going to happen, and here are the documents that prove that we knew it was going to happen, and here's how it's going to be instigated, then they should be fine. However, if they can't prove that, then that might be a problem that the EFL have obviously brought these charges. So that must be where the contention is as to, you know, how and when the stadium was sold. There's all sorts of questions that are being asked about it. We were talking just off air, weren't we, about the fact that De Ponchansiri came out, I think it was around Christmas time in 2018, so after the end of the accounting period, and said he was expecting an 8-figure loss for Sheffield Wednesday's accounts. So if he knew that the stadium was going to be sold, he would know, presumably, there was going to be a profit and not a loss, which then leads to other questions, of course. So there's all sorts of muddle, and we should stress as well that Sheffield Wednesday are going to defend themselves and vigorously in the statement that they've put out today.
The charges will be vigorously defended, they said, and they said they wouldn't be adding to that statement, and the EFL have said they won't be adding to it. So it's probably important we don't speculate too far, but there's quite a bit of fatalistic reaction from some pretty clued up Sheffield Wednesday supporters that I've seen online tonight, and I don't blame them for taking that view. And I think many supporters will fear the worst here, and many will be looking at the championship table and wondering where a points deduction would leave them. And at the moment they're 8th with 25 points. Should they be docked 10 points, for instance, that would should they be docked 10 points from that would leave them with 15. And the way the table is at the moment, they're just above the bottom 3. Should it be, say, 12, that would leave them down on 13, level with third bottom Middlesbrough, which is somewhat ironic, considering the Middlesbrough chairman, Steve Gibson's opposition to what Sheffield Wednesday have done.
Yeah, and it would torpedo the season this season, and you know it's not fair on the likes of Gary Monk, who you know has done absolutely nothing wrong, has come in to manage the club. But I guess the EFL will have to make the case, if they feel that something is wrong, that you know Sheffield Wednesday would need to be punished. And of course, there's other clubs that have done similar things to Sheffield Wednesday that may or may not be looked at as well. The likes of Derby County that have sold the stadium to themselves. Reading look to have done this as well. But this in particular appears to be about the timing and the inclusion of the sale within a set of accounts. And the questions being raised about the company, for instance, that bought Hillsborough not actually existing during the accounting period to which Sheffield Wednesday booked the profits. So this is where the questions are being raised, and Sheffield Wednesday will need to come up with some answers for that.
Hopefully the worst scenario doesn't happen, but it is looking a bit like Groundhog Day, or potentially Groundhog Day for Gary Monk after his experiences with Birmingham last season, and it's certainly an incentive to keep getting those points on the board as well, whichever way you look at it. Mike, thanks very much. I think that's as far as we can take that. But Josh, let's go back to Joe Root and the work that you've been doing with him. And we've got a little video here. Okay, so it's going to be 7 deliveries. You've been working with him in the nets. It's rather a peculiar bowling action, I should tell you, to start with. Had there been umpires on duty, I'm sure that Josh here would have been called for throwing, but there's a specific reason why he's larruping it down, throwing it down a bit like a dog sling at Joe Root in there. Let's have a quick look at this. So there's a lovely shot. So you're coming in here, slinging the ball down at what sort of pace are you generating there, Josh?
This is probably, I think this is probably early on, this is probably about mid-80s, probably a bit less actually. You can sort of see my run up when it gets a little bit fast. This one's probably a little bit faster.
Are you coming in inside 22 yards?
That I am there now. There is times when I'm a bit closer, when we're doing a bit of specific stuff on facing, some quick bowling. That one was a little bit quicker.
So Blinken, you missed that. So in part 2, we're going to have another look at that, and a closer look at that. So what in particular are you looking to help Joe iron out there with that?
I mean, first of all, it was the point of it all was him getting back into it. I mean, he was given a chunk of time off after the summer, which was a very successful but very busy summer. And he wanted to get back into it. That was the main aim of what we were doing. And like I said earlier, it's something what's not unusual for us to spend some time together, doing things like that.
Yeah.
He wanted to look at his balance and how he was setting up in the crease, and we just tried to and a couple of times someone else, Simon Guy. We're trying to help him do is just be very in a comfortable environment where he would feel relaxed, happy playing cricket, and we certainly did that. And sort of after the first one, he sort of felt very happy and wanted to do it again because it felt like it clicked and it was right. I mean, he was playing very well, as you'd expect, but it's sometimes just.
These sessions, we only saw 25 seconds there of consecutive delivery. They go on for hours now.
Yeah.
How long do they go on?
For people who know Joe personally, they were meant to be a couple of hours each time. Joe's couple of hours is probably 4 or 5 hours. His last 6 deliveries, when he says last 6, are probably about, you're looking at another 20 minutes there. We put a lot of work in. We got a lot out of it as well, actually. So it was, So are you trying to simulate particular bowlers that he's going to face this winter, or is it just a general thing? We have done that before. We have looked at the Ashes when Mitchell Johnson was around. We looked at situational stuff there with the bowlers.
Yeah.
This time we didn't actually think about anyone bowling. I just ran in and used the slinger to bowl at him.
And you're trying to generate the pace into the
paces. I'm trying to get him out. I'm trying to, if I'm bowling a bound.
Do you?
Yeah, a couple of times I do okay. A couple of times. I have to work very hard for my wickets when I'm bowling him. But yeah, like I said, it's sometimes we get a brand new ball out and I get a bit closer and it's a real challenge for him.
And if you get him out, is there a debrief based on post-mortem?
No, the ball when he throws the ball back, it comes back a little bit harder. But no, he might, if we recorded it on the iPad, he might have a look at it. But again, like we said, we weren't focusing too much on it. It was just very relaxed and going from there.
And his decision to bat number 4 is that was only announced today, but presumably you'll have been on the inside of that conversation. Yeah,
I think people who've sort of watched Test cricket a lot and know Joe again probably know without even saying that he probably wants to bat 4. I mean, for me as an England supporter, I think it's probably the best decision. I feel more comfortable with him batting at 4, and I think he does, and I think the rest of the team does. So why wouldn't you want him there?
Yeah, because for a captain who's got an overload mentally in the field, suddenly comes in, sits down in the pavilion, and a wicket goes down immediately, and suddenly he's padding up to go back out there.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the time, the big example is the Ashes just gone. I mean, he was getting very, very good balls. The ball was a bit harder.
True.
But still quite new. Woody got that. Still your number 3 is going to get that, but ultimately he's our best batter. He's the one who's going to score the most runs. So
Right. Okay. Well, look, 10 seconds to the break, and that's 20 minutes has flown by. The good news is part 2 is longer. James Gregg will join us. Lots of chat about lots of other different sport, including a club I visited this week. Mike will be there. So will Josh, and I'll be here. See you in 5.